Great. So just a couple of housekeeping items. We do record all of these sessions. I'm going to show you where you'll be able to find the recording probably around this time tomorrow. We should have it ripped and published. One of the things Vic has mentioned a couple of times about keeping your webcam disabled. The problem with webcams is it actually cuts into the screen recording, and I don't think anyone particularly wants to see themselves on a Zapier recording. So it's for everyone's benefit, just keep your camera disabled. Okay, so Billy, please scroll down. This is the home page. Okay, and right towards the bottom, you'll see training, and then you'll see upcoming events. Just don't click on the upcoming events, but upcoming events is where we always post our upcoming events. So events like this, and you'll see notice of this here. But then two down from that, you're going to see keystroke training videos. If you can just click on that, Billy. Okay, and then scroll down. So this is where we have all of our recordings. And what you'll see is at the very bottom will be either below or depending on the length of it, it will fit in at the end there. And you know, that's how we post them in. They're just like, and they'll pop up in little show modal screens, and we'll list the length here. We're anticipating that this will be just over an hour with some questions and answers, but we're very excited to present this. And I just want to show you one more page. Can you, Billy, go up to the top menu and click on ACT, and then ACT Products, and then scroll down to ACT Connections. So ACT Connections is our API page, okay? This is where we've got videos and kind of explanations, including what we're covering today, about how you can connect to third-party applications like social media, like back-end offices, like websites, customer service apps, things like that. And one of the main tools for integrating in with third-party applications, I mean, certainly we have more API integration tools than anyone else, but Zapier is a third-party service that allows you to integrate with a lot of these third-party services, and that's what Billy's going to cover today. But I just wanted kind of a reference point that if you go to keystroke.ca/connections, you can find this page, and this is a good page to return to. It's got a bunch of helpful videos that you can reference after the presentation. So with that introduction, Billy, I'll let you take it over.
Hey guys, well, thank you very much for that introduction, Ken. We're gonna kind of talk through some basic connections between different applications, but I kind of want to take a hot moment and just talk about what an API is in short. It stands for Application Programming Interface. That's not really the important part. The big thing you want to know is that it allows one software, or even not necessarily a business level software, even just like smaller testing softwares, to be able to connect to a product and pull down data. Now you'll find APIs on pretty much any program these days that holds on to data, and especially database programs. So we were super happy when ACT started really adopting the web API because it gave a chance for us to connect and pull data down from databases everywhere. Now, Zapier is a service that kind of shims between two different products. So today I'm going to show you a little bit about how Zapier utilizes that ACT Web API plus thousands of other APIs to make two products that previously did not know how to talk to each other speak the same language and pull the same data down in a fairly user-friendly user environment. So we're going to go through a couple of kind of key connections here. The first thing you want to do is head over to Zapier.com and sign up for an account. When you sign up for one of those accounts, you do get a 14-day free premium trial. And we're going to discuss premium in a little bit, and it'll kind of explain to you why you would ever want a premium account and what the costs are associated with that. But I've already created this account and I've logged in. And when you log in, you kind of get this dashboard page, and there is nothing really to it. We haven't created anything, and so we're going to start off there. Now, there's a little bit of setup involved. So for ACT to be able to receive data, you have to have a premium subscription and the ACT Web API installed. And I'm going to show you my database. I've made a little Zapier demo database just for this. Let me pull it on the screen. So it's a very simple database. This is just me going in Act, making a file, new database, giving it a name. But there's a kind of key thing that a lot of people don't do in their Act databases, especially when they're hosting them themselves, is they don't put a password on there. And Zapier is going to require a password to this process. You cannot do a blank password Act database. So if you don't have one, if you don't have a password, you might want to go ahead and add it before you start following along. Now, I've of course added my password, but now I also need to kind of get some other connectivity information in. But we're going to get to that when we get around to accessing the Act database. So we'll come right back to this demo database here in a little bit. And we're going to start off by creating a brand new Zap. And I want to create my favorite one first. I want to just play favorites. And this is one for Slack. If your company uses Slack for communication, and if you don't, I strongly suggest you do. It's a fantastic little product, and I like it better than Microsoft Teams. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect Act and Slack in kind of an interesting way. So we're going to start off by clicking Make a Zap, and it's going to say, well, hey, what do you want to do? Which application of over 2,000 plus applications do you want to connect? And what I'm going to do is we're going to create a connection to our Act database. And every time there's a new opportunity, I'm going to get a private message in Slack so that I can see, oh, hey, there's a chance for me to make some money. So Zapier starts off by getting a trigger event. So this trigger, in this case, is all Zaps start off with a trigger and they have one or more actions. But this trigger, if you click this little drop down, it's going to say new contact or new opportunity. Now, triggers in Act, those are the only triggers you're ever going to have. So these are the only two events you can think about syncing up from Act when using Zapier. This is added in by Act directly into the Zapier product. So each one of these is like a little program they made using Zapier's code language to make sure they could talk back and forth. So I'm going to click New Opportunity. And the first thing it wants me to do is to sign into Act. So all API enabled applications, if it's handheld contact API, if it's Zapier, if it's just pretty much anything that you would have that's API based, needs a couple pieces of information. So when I click on that, it's going to ask me for those pieces of information. So it's going to ask for my Act username, my Act password, my database name. And if you don't know what that is, just look at the very top of your Act installation and you'll see what the database name is. Mine says Zapier Demo. Now that might be different for you if you're hosted online through either Keystroke or Act, or if you're using a SaaS account. And well, we'll go back and show you the website at the keystroke.ca/connections website, so you can kind of see how to pull down some of that information. So I'm putting Zapier Demo, and now it says URL. And so this is the biggest part where everybody gets tripped up. Now, I'm hosting my own Act database. It's on my own computer. And to get that URL, since I don't have a complex deployment with like my own web server hosting the API, I just literally installed Act Premium and made a database. So what do? What I've done is there's a section on the left-hand side the subscribers get a hold of that's called Act Connect. And I've already installed this software, so we're not going to go through that. I do have a video on installing it, but this creates a URL for you automatically to attach into Zapier or any other API-enabled application to pull that data down. So I'm just going to copy this URL, and I'm going to paste it in here. And I don't have to do much else except for they force you to use HTTPS. So I'm just going to take out that extra HTTPS at the beginning. Okay, and I'm going to hit continue. So what we've just done is we've created a connection which is stored in Zapier that has that Act information. So if I hit this dropdown, I'll now see an Act account that's listed right here. I select it, it's saved in, and I can keep using this all day for the rest of the Act applications that I make. So when I'm doing my Twitter one later on, I can select this one in. It's saved in my account, and it's easy for me to access later. So this is the first part where I'm creating this trigger. I've connected the account. We'll hit continue. And before you get out of any step, it always says, hey, we need to test this out. We want to make sure this works. So I'm going to hit test trigger. Now I haven't made an opportunity in Act, so it's going to say it couldn't find anything, and that's okay. We're going to go ahead and say skip test for now. And when we do that, it's going to temporarily put in some dummy data for the next step so you can kind of still map out the next part. Because the next part, where we're creating what happens after that trigger, is a little bit more complicated. So, but went ahead and tossed in an example opportunity just so we have some data. So let's go over to the action. So we're back to this screen where it's saying, hey, why don't we pick an application? And we're going to pick Slack because I really enjoy this. This is kind of a fun way to make sure that I'm getting real-time updates every single time there's a new opportunity. And so my events, right, what's going to happen, my action is going to be to send a direct message, right? Now, there's a bunch of different actions in here. You can send an entire channel a message. So if you got a sales team that's waiting for new opportunities or whatnot, and you want to make sure those get in, especially if these are coming from another source like a website or whatnot, you want to make sure that your guys are on top of those new opportunities. So I can send a channel message, a channel topic. I can add a Slack reminder. You can do all sorts of different ideas. You can even create a new channel. I would never do that, but you could do that if you totally wanted to. But we are going to send a direct message. And so now it's going to ask me to connect my Slack account because we already did that with the Act account. As soon as we got to this point, it asked us to connect to Act. So since Zapier is very pattern based, so it's now time to sign into Slack. So I've already connected my keystroke Slack account. What it asks you for is your Slack credentials, and that's it. And then it may ask you an additional question saying, hey, do you want to allow Zapier to have access to Slack? In which case you will need to allow, which is kind of what it's doing right here. See, so Zapier's requesting permission to look at the keystroke Slack workspace. So I'm gonna hit allow. All right, so now I select the account and there it is, Slack. So I'm gonna hit continue. So I said earlier that this part can be a little bit more complicated, and this is probably the biggest tripping point for anybody using Zapier because it's just asking you a bunch of questions. And even on top of those questions, there's a lot of data that it's pulling and that you can actually put into this messages. So we're going to have a little fun with it. I can tell it to send a multi-message. I'll say no to this. What that means is, and I try to explain everything here, is if you want to send it to multiple users. I don't. I'm just going to send it to me. If I can type my name. There we go. And then the message text. So this is where I say, hey, there was a new opportunity in Act. And then what is this? It's got some more information down here at the bottom. And you see all these Act icons. So what you see right now, name, stage name, status. Well, those sound familiar to me. If I go take a quick look over at Act and I look into the opportunities, I see that these are all opportunity-based fields, and that's what it's pulling from. It's actually pulling from data types that are already here in an opportunity. So I could put in this. What it does is it pulls it right up here into this message text. So it's going to tell me the name of the opportunity that was put into Act. If I click that little show more icon, I've got a bunch of data that I can select through here and make sure it gets in. I can look at the contact names that were attached with that. I can go ahead and put that into a message. I can come down here and look at the source, the gross margin, anything that I really want to add into this this message to me, this quick message just saying, hey, there's something new here. We're going to go to, let's add a product total, and let's see, I think there's a, yeah, we like the weighted totals, the gross margins, anything that you really want to add in here. Especially if you guys have custom fields for an opportunity that always need to be filled out, not gonna be like customer number or something like that. You could include that in this message. And then let's do, we'll do creator. That's a good one. Okay. So whenever I receive this message, it'll say, hey, there was an opportunity in Act. There's the name. And then you can literally, it's just like typing mail merge fields into a document. contacts. So I'm going to add contacts in there, and then product total, and then created by. So this message is going to fill in all this information as we go. So I'm going to say send as a bot. I always leave this as yes. It doesn't really matter. It's up to you. You can have it sent from a specific user in your database, but I like sending it from a bot. I like giving it a bot name. So we're going to call it Zapier Demo January. And then it's going to ask you more questions. Bot icon, you don't have to worry about that. You can give it a specific icon if you want. If you want to send a hyperlink to the Zap, I'm going to say no to it. And then let's see, do I have to do anything else? No. And you can even schedule these to code at a certain time. So if you want to make sure that all these are just set up to send at, one, big chunk in the middle of the day, that's fine as well. But that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to hit continue. And it kind of shows you, hey, this is what we're going to do. Here's all the settings that you just went through. And we can, as always, have to do a test. So when I hit test, I'm pretty sure I'm going to receive a text or a message in Slack. Let's see if I do. Oh, look at that. I did. So I'm going to pull my Slack over here. And if I click on Slackbot, I have a message right here that says, hey, there was an opportunity in Act. Now there's no data, so you're not going to see the rest of those mail merge fields that I put in. But whenever I actually put in an opportunity later, these are all going to fill in and kind of give us some more information. So for most Zaps, that's how it works, is you put in the information, the test is usually blank or has just some data. If I already had an opportunity in here, it would have filled these in, because that was part of the earlier thing when it said we couldn't find an opportunity and gave me some blank demo data. If I'd already had one in there, it would have been there. But for now, it's just going to give us this blank. But I've already received a message from Zapier Demo January. And as you can see earlier, I was testing this with one called Zapier Demo Bot. So we have a Zap. It's complete. We have check marks all down the line for the actions for the events. And the last thing we can do is turn it on. And there's 3 ways to turn it on just on this screen. So they really want you to do that. And that's to hit the toggle at the bottom, to hit the big blue turn on Zap, or on the top right, there's also an on off. So I'm going to hit turn on Zap. And there we go. So this Zap is on. We can actually copy this link. And what it does when you do this, it copies the all of the steps that I put in, all of the settings for it, and it makes it to where you can have those directly. So I'm just going to copy that link. I'm going to put it into the chat just to say it's in there. And we're going to close. So our Zap is on. The last thing you do in the top left corner, you can name that Zap. So I'm going to call this Slack Demo January 2020. And you can hit that little gear on the left-hand side to go back to your main list. So we're back at our dashboard now. We see there is a Zap that is currently on. So when there's a new opportunity in Act, it's going to send me a message in Slack. So we'll do that here in a little bit. So before I go on to the next part, does anybody have any questions about that process? I know that I just threw a lot at you, but it should have basically come in 4 basic sections. You select the app, you select the trigger, you select the second app, and you select the events that are triggered by the first app.
So if you have any questions,
2021
in chat.
I just got called out. It is 2021. I'm going to fix this right now. Look at that. Thank you very much. John Purdy just sent me that message. So feel free to use the chat, hit the little chat icon, type whatever you like, and then we'll pause between Zaps so you can kind of get some of these questions asked. All right. Next up on my list, let's do some Twitter. So what I want to do is every single time I get a new follower in Twitter on my tiny little Twitter that I've made, I want to add a contact into Act. So in this case, or in the previous case, Act was the trigger. In this case, Twitter will be the trigger and Act will be the action. And that'll let me show you my favorite Act action. So let's make a news app. Let's do Twitter. Now, Twitter has a lot of different triggers to it. So let's just kind of run through them. And they're about you or another user. But so you can say, my tweet, whenever you tweet something new, you can have something happen. So that's a trigger every time you tweet. It goes somewhere else. This is good, especially if you want to like, you make a tweet, you want to make a Facebook post, it'll do that for you. I don't see any reason, any value for an Act standpoint to have my tweet affect anything in Act. So we're going to skip this one. User tweet. This is what you actually can select someone else, and whenever they tweet, it does something. That's kind of fun. You can set up to where anybody, when a specific user likes a tweet. So that's kind of a fun one. You can search for mentions. You can search and geo mention, so it's geographically set. But here's the one right here. These two right here, actually. So new follower allows me to say when a certain user has a new follower or a new follower of me. So whenever I get a new follower, this is the money right here. So I want to go ahead and every time there's a new follower of me in Twitter, I want it to do something in Act. So let's hit continue. And if you just think about what the next step is going to be, the next step is going to be to connect my Twitter account. And that's because, again, Zapier's pattern based. So you select the app, you select the trigger, and then you gotta kind of tell it which one it is. So I'm going to continue. It's going to ask me to sign into Twitter. So it will say, hey, do you want, this is something that drives me crazy. Every time you make a Twitter-based app, it will ask you if you want to start following Zapier. And I have to manually switch this to no, but I'm going to go ahead and feed the beast and say yes this time. And then it'll ask you, hey, do you want to authorize this app? Now, the reason why it didn't ask me for any login credentials is because I was already logged into Twitter. So it knows I'm logged in. So it's just going to say, hey, let's authorize this app. So the way that those types of connections work, many of these applications are going to do the same thing. They're going to say, oh, you're already logged in. We already have these types of logins. So let's just authorize the app, which I've done. So now the screen has changed. I can click this and I can click on my KQC Twitter that I've set up for my demos. Okay, so it wants me to test the trigger. Now, I don't know who else followed this this account. Sometimes I get bot accounts on here, but I'm gonna hit the button anyway. Let's just see what it is. Okay, good. I couldn't find a follower. So we'll skip the test and skip the test. So it's gonna give me some fake information just like last time, just so I can fill out the next section a little better. And I'll hit continue. So there's our entire trigger section. Twitter was our trigger. And now we're gonna go to our event. So we'll click on Act and our event. And I told you I was going to show you my favorite, but let's just run through the different options here. So, of course, you can add a contact. Well, that's great. What if I already have a contact for them? You can add a new history in. This might actually be a pretty good one, depending on if you've got multiple Twitter-based follower items. If you wanted to have like to where each user in your database got a new history when they got a new follower, just for, I don't know, for bragging rights or for whatever you guys do, that's totally fine. There is a section for adding an activity. So this is kind of fun because you can add like a call or a reach out event, especially if you've got a new follower and you want to try to reach out to them. If you've got a really active Twitter though, there's going to be, your calendar is going to be full. So I'll skip this one. You can add groups, you can add notes, you can add new opportunities. I don't think a Twitter follower is an opportunity, so that's not going to do me any good today. I can update a contact, or I'm going to do my favorite one, which is find or create contact. So it's going to search your database for a contact based off of the criteria we give it. If it does exist, well, it knows that contact's there and it's going to make updates. But if it doesn't exist, it's going to go ahead and make a brand new contact. So I'm going to click continue. Now, last Zap, I told you the event section, the actions section is the kind of trickiest part, and that is no different here. But I already did some work, so this is going to be a little easy because whenever I go to choose that Act account, look what's already sitting right here. All right, so since we did this previously, like I said, it's stored in Zapier. We can keep referencing it, or if I wanted to, I can make a brand new connection and we could reconnect to the account. I'm not going to waste your time with that this time, but we're going to do that on the next one, just so, because I think repetition is important. So I'm going to click on Act and hit continue. So now it's time to set up that action. So what does it want to search by? Well, so Twitter doesn't have as many special fields for us to select for searching. So I'm going to actually probably end up using a specific field, but let's take a quick look. So when I click on this link, It's going to show me a bunch of fields to search by, and we're going to go with, let's try email address. Let's see if there's any email data. So this is the ACT field of email, and the value to search by, when I click on this, you see it's got a Twitter icon now, and that's because I'm pulling the actual Twitter information here. So if I click show all options, this will give me the full list of all of the fields that Twitter has available for it. And you'll probably notice, I don't think they actually give email addresses out. So you're not going to have that right there. So maybe instead I use the follower screen name or the follower name. I'm going to go with screen name because that should be the @ style name for it. I could be wrong on that one. I'll have to do some tests to find out. But if I click on Zapier, it'll put it right up in here on what to search by. You could also, instead of doing, since I have it selected an email, let's do it this way. Let's do contact. So that's the full name. What if I want to put them in their database based off of their Twitter name? That might be how my business runs. I'm not here to judge. Now, this part right here, should this step be considered a success when nothing is found? Don't even worry about it. It's going to ask us to delete this later because it doesn't understand what this means. This is something I'm actually putting some feedback in they may need to remove, because this next checkbox invalidates that, and that is create the @ contact if it doesn't exist yet. So we're going to hit the box. And here we go. So this is where the super complicated stuff happens, because there's just, again, there's asking question after question after question. And for those of you who are familiar with ACT databases, you probably see some kind of familiar stuff here, like the user fields and spouse and website and so forth. These are just, they're ACT fields. So everything that I put in here is going to be put directly into the contact when it's created. So we don't have much to work on, really. We just have some Twitter stuff. So let's do that. Now, even though we're searching by contact, when it goes to put the name in, it only gives you first name or last name. It doesn't give you contact, I don't believe. I haven't seen it yet. No. So I'm just going to use the first name field. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something fun. I'm going to put in some plain text first, Twitter. And for that last name, I'm going to put that follower screen name, right? So just for my own organization, every person that I add this way, their first name will be Twitter. And so that kind of helps me separate some things out. And I don't know anybody in the real world named Twitter, so that's probably going to be okay. For referred by, I could put whatever I want here. So I'm just going to put Twitter. I could put any amount of that extra data in there that I want as well. In fact, if I go follower URL, look at that. I've already got the URL to connect back to that user. Very simple. I don't have to do a search for it or anything. If I come down, I don't have an email address, so I'm going to skip right past that. I can come down to, say, website, and I can do the same thing. I can hit that follower URL. So in ACT, whenever ACT gets a hold of one of those, it's put that website directly here, and in ACT, those websites they're clickable. So I can click on it and it's going to pull up the website for me. So that's kind of a quick way to get back to their Twitter handle. So you can say, hey, thanks for the follow. Let's say I want to start tracking where these are coming from, like a referral source in a sense. And so I don't have that really. I have referred by, that's great. But let's just say I'm doing something just for metrics later. I can say referred by Twitter, right? So I can put whatever I'd like in here. And again, I can keep using any of the data from Twitter as I want, just so I can fill out that data more properly. So you could do like advanced queries and group queries later on these things. And again, I told you it's going to ask me if I want to delete that. So I'm just going to hit remove extra fields. And that thing says, is this considered failed? If it doesn't find anything, goes away. It's not needed. So you can just hit remove. That's just a downside of how this find or create contact works. So I'm going to continue. Right. And now it wants to test. It always wants to test. And here's what it's going to do. It's put in some dummy data. So that was from step 1. And so it's going to give me the referred by, it's going to say Twitter, and it's going to give the URL. It's a shortened URL because it's dummy data. The first name, the last name, all of the data that I put in there. When I hit test and continue, I'm going to try to connect to my ACT database. It's going to look for that contact, and I got a little green check mark. It didn't say anything else. It didn't say, hey, this worked. It didn't say, congratulations. It just gave a green check mark. So if I head over to Act, and I go into my contacts. I got 2 contacts right now. Let's do look up all contacts. Look at that. There's Twitter Zapier was just added to the account almost immediately. And there they are. So the website is already linked over. Their first name, Twitter Zapier. Their salutation is Twitter, because that's automatic. Referred by, I put in this Twitter in the URL, and referred by Twitter came down here at the bottom. Now, so we've connected 2 apps at this point, pretty simple, and they've automatically passed back over into Act. I'm going to turn this little guy on. So every time someone, oh, I need to validate that email address. Hold on one second, guys. Cool. That should be validated now. Sorry about that. Let's try to see if we can turn it on now. There we go. And again, I can just copy a link to this. I'm going to pop it into the chat just so in case anybody wants to copy or follow along, you can. And use that immediately. So now we've connected 2. Let's give this a, go back here. I'm going to give this guy, I didn't name my app, so I'm going to give it a name. So Twitter to Act, and we'll say January 2021 this time. Gear, go back, and there we go. So now I've got these 2 active Zaps. So every time I get a new Twitter follower, I got a contact in Act. Every time there's a new opportunity in Act, I got a message in Slack. I just got another message in Slack because I made an opportunity was made earlier today. So it's, or actually, sorry, because when I was showing you this, I had to make a new opportunity. I received another message since I didn't put anything in there, but you see it added my name in because it was created by me. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's make a brand new opportunity. We're going to call it test op, and we're going to add some contacts. Let's just add everybody. That's fun. I don't think I have any products in here to add, so I do not. So we're just going to add one at dollars. I added that in there, and then whenever I hit save, hopefully here in a few minutes, because though we'll get into what I mean by a few minutes, I'll get a message from Slackbot. So now, even though I've created these apps and they say on, and you guys have seen a lot of mostly instantaneous things happening, you saw those happening in the test process. So there are different types of plans. I just want to take a quick moment to show you the plans that are available, because this will explain what I meant by a couple of minutes. So you get kind of a premium plan just as a trial when you first sign up, but the free plan it only gives you a total of 5 Zaps, and it updates every 15 minutes. Okay. Additionally, you only get 1 step. So whereas, and that's all I've been doing so far. So there's the trigger, and then there was the follow-up action. Those are single steps. And Slackbot has just sent me a message, and I see there's test op with contacts, Twitter, Zapier, and then it ellipsed the rest. Gave me the product total of 100 and created by Billy. So my Zap's working great. So the next one up, which is probably the best value, it's $19.99 USD a month. I'm not sure what it is in Canadian. So this gives you the ability to have multiple steps. So every time I got a new opportunity in Act, it could send me a message in Slack. It could, send me an email. It could do, an unlimited number of things after that, right? And then it says 3 premium apps. So I'm going to show you a premium app here next. We'll try to get into that. These are certain apps that Zapier has selected, and that they need to be exclusive to these higher paid tiers. And then filters, formatters, which are fun. I'm not going to go over formatters today, and connections via webhooks, which is a part of the premium apps as well. So that big thing though is that 15-minute update time. So every 15 minutes, it will cycle back through the app. when it's actually signed us up for a pro plan today, so I'm getting a 2-minute update time. That's why I got that message as quickly as I did. The price gets a little hefty from the starter on, at least in my eyes. Then it gives you the unlimited premium apps, but that 2-minute update time, if you need really fast responses, that's going to be the lowest tier you want to go to. So let's get back over to my Zaps real quick. Let's at our dashboard. Let's do Shopify. Now, I have put together a little Shopify account right here. I've actually created a little Zapier demo video product in my Shopify. I put it at the great cost of $5,000. I'm not going to link you to my Shopify unless you really want to donate to my boat fund, but we are going to make an app or a Zap, excuse me, that anytime there's a sale in Shopify, that it adds those contacts directly into my Act database. Go ahead and make a Zap. And we're going to type Shopify. And you'll see right here, it says premium on it. So when my trial ends, since this isn't a paid account, this Zap's going to turn itself off because I don't have a premium account. So as previously, we're going to select our trigger event. And there's a bunch of different ones in here, like new customers. Now, you'll see right here, it says instant on this one. Some premium Zaps have immediate updates. And so if a customer updates their data, it'll automatically update it in your Act database immediately by the form of webhooks. So it just realizes there's something there and it forces that out immediately and says, hey, you need to update this client information. Because even if they haven't made a recent purchase with you, you having their updated information, you being able to reach out to your customer and say, hey, you bought our product or service, let's get this. I see that you've changed some stuff. We just want to make sure everything's good, that we haven't missed contact with you. So email address changes, things like that will be immediate. And then new order of any status, updated orders, but here's the one I want right here, new paid order. So every single time someone pays me for an order, I want to know about it. And as previously, it'll ask me to sign into Shopify. So Shopify uses these URLs. So I got a January 2020 Zap demo shop. And then even though the window went away, what it did is it added the account immediately. That's because I'm still logged in as that account. So if I hit choose account, I'll see my Shopify. As I told you, stay logged in. That's the best way to make this easy on you. And here we go. Here's our trigger. So we can say payment status, paid, pending, unpaid, refunded. Give me that paid. I want to know whenever I'm actually receiving money. The order status, I'm just going to leave it at any because I don't know if how quickly Shopify closes an order. And for fulfillment status, we'll say any. And so now we get to test the trigger. Now, I couldn't find anything again because I don't actually have a paid order. I'm not about to spend $5,000 on myself. If I click skip test though, it will do as it's done previously. It'll toss in some dummy data for us so that we can use it in the next section. So now we want to go into Act, and we're going to do that find or create contact. It's probably the best way, or I can actually do an opportunity. Let's go find out what we're going to do. So I've selected Act and our custom event. Let's say we got add contact, add history, group, or add opportunity. So here we get a kind of a fun situation where if I do add an opportunity, if anybody creates a paid or makes a payment to my Shopify account, it will create an opportunity in Act. And then later on, the Zap that picks up that opportunity in Act will send me a message in Slack. So I'm starting to do this kind of workflow in a sense where it automatically takes care of stuff without being multi-step. Even though it's technically multi-step in what we're doing, it is pulling these in individually if I were to go with that opportunity. We're still going to do find or create contact because to me, a paid a payment on Shopify means that it's not actually an opportunity. It's something that's already happened. So we're going to do find or create contact. We've already done this before where we create the connection, but for repetition's sake, I'm going to click create new account. I just want you to see it and make sure that it's in your in your mind of what's going on. So I'm going to go to my Act Connect screen. I'll see my URL. I'll see that my database name is Zapier Demo. I'm just going to log in. And if I scroll down, I'll paste in that URL, and I'm going to take off that HTTPS from the front. Now, there's no like duplicate checking. It doesn't like look at any of your data to see if you've already connected it. It just adds a second one. So we're going to add the second one in here just because we made it. And that's it. That's how quick it is to just add an account directly into your Zapier setup for later. So field to search by. Now, Twitter didn't give us much information, but Shopify definitely does. So I'm going to go by email address, and the value to search by is, and you'll see all of these Shopify, well, it only shows 3 until you hit show all options, but you'll see many, many fields from Shopify. So you can get all of the information that we couldn't get for Twitter, we can get here. So Mark Levine asked a question. My understanding is we need Act Web API. How do we know if we have the Act Web API? That's a really good question. In fact, that's the reason why we're doing a lot of these pushes. Most people don't realize they've already got it. When you install Act, the Act Web API is created or is installed, but it's usually an older version. The very base minimum is always installed with Act Premium subscriptions every single time. Now, how to access it, we will use that keystroke.ca/connections page. And we have some videos on how to install Act Connect Link if you're like a one-man shop. If you're hosted with us, or if you're hosted with Act, or even if you're on one of the new Act CRM accounts, their SaaS system, you already have access to that web API, and we can help you get that connection going. So earlier I said we're going to select search by the Act email address, and the value that I'm going to search by is contact email, right? Because this is what Shopify gives me. And I said, and we're going to skip. Remember, I told you earlier we're not going to touch this, and we're going to skip this section. So we're going to do that. We're going to click Create Act Contact if it doesn't exist. So now we get to really play around with some of this data. So I'm going to hit Show All Options. Now, Shopify does allow you to do a little bit more. I believe that company was not one of the fields that was listed in there. So much data that here that you can look at, and you can select any of these for the creation of your contacts. I don't see company on the list, so we'll skip past company for now. We're gonna, for referred by, we'll go Shopify first name. So customer first name, it automatically selected that because they're very similarly named. Let's go to last name. Now, customer last name is automatically on the list. Email address, there's email. For title, they don't have a title on here. That's okay. Business phone. So this is where it's going to start like really getting into the additional data that you have in here. So there's billing address phone immediately on there. Billing address. We always have to keep clicking show more options. Billing address 1. Billing address city. I think you can actually start searching. Yeah, if you just type billing address. Okay, look at that. You guys got listed as province. Zip. Oh, take that out. Hit the search here. Billing address country. And so forth. So you can just put whatever we'd like in here all the way down. Kind of the fun part is if you have custom fields are going to show up in this list. So you want to make sure you're capturing as much data as you want. So if I do get a Shopify sale that's closed and they've paid, the referred by is going to say Shopify. I'm going to change the ID status to customer, right? It's going to add all those in for the individual contact. It's going to pull all of the Shopify data in. And so that's less work for you later. So you don't have to get a report from Shopify or get one of those emails and manually put in all this information into the Act database every time you get a sale. So I'm going to hit remove these extra fields and hit continue, just like we did last time. And it'll say, hey, do we want to test this? And here's the test data that it automatically filled in with some random letters pretty much for most of this. I'm going to test and continue. So it's going to try to find that contact. I get a little green check mark, but it means everything's good. And if I head over to Act, banking, if I do oh, look, see, I got a Twitter follower called NFL Junkie. Whoever you are, you're a hero. Thank you very much. And so here is a Shopify customer who was added into my Act database automatically. So we didn't do anything else except for a test at this point. So nobody's actually made a purchase, but the test does go through the whole process. I'm gonna click the little button right here, turn it on. I'm gonna copy that link. I'm gonna paste it over here in chat. So you guys can keep following along if you want. Now, once I get to that all the way to the end, it doesn't give me the option to rename it. So I'm just gonna hit edit and rename it right now. Shopify to Act, January 2021. All right, got a couple of questions that have come in. What programs have been asked for that does not have a Zap connection? That's a good one. There's actually one that I was looking at in preparation for this because I was trying to sync. Actually, let's go open up the Act product. And if we go over to Act Connect, you're going to see some stuff right here that says like Etsy, right? If we come in here to make an app for Etsy, there isn't one. So for connections like Etsy, you actually have to use the one that's in the Act product because it uses a different system, right? It uses Cloud Elements, but it's the same basic process. You go in, let's go ahead and click on it, pull it in. You can see what it looks like. So basically, it's literally you log into Act, you log into Etsy the same way, and it takes care of all that triggers there. But that's a different system. I don't want to confuse this with Zapier in any way. I haven't had a lot of exposure to this system, mainly because I haven't managed to get it to work as fluidly as I have with Zapier. This was the kind of the later generation of connections. When Act Connect was created, so were these connections. They started to filter in. Sure. Mark Levine asks, in the first part of the webinar, you mentioned somewhere on the Keystroke site about connections. Where is it? Let's go ahead and head back over here. So if you go to keystroke.ca/connections, or if you go into Act Product, Act Connections here, you'll get this page. Sorry, Eileen. And this kind of gives you the full rundown on a lot of things on what an API is, how to connect to it. I made some quick videos about that specifically. What is an API? Why should you care? And what does it do? And we kind of talk about some of the connections that you can make. We actually straight up point many of these out. Now, this isn't the end of it. Today we're focused primarily on Zapier, yes, but there's a bunch of other programs out here. Like we got Link to Calendar, Link to Events, Link to Forms. These are all products that Keystroke has made that uses the same API technology to manipulate data in your Act database. Link to Lists is one of our newest ones, and it kind of takes place of the best part, I think, of Opt-in Manager, and that's where it's going to verify your email addresses, for instance, for your marketing campaigns. So same technology, just a different use. Where instead of using Zapier, our program asks you for the same 4 pieces of information, that username, that password, that database name, and the URL, and it takes care of its own stuff without using Zapier as that shim application between the two.
Billy, we have a question from John. He actually emailed me this in advance. He wants to do some reporting, and he said, can the SQL Server app in Zapier connect to SQL data in Act? I think he, as I said, he wants to run with third-party reporting tools.
That's a really good question. Let's go find out. But in here is, that's why it's in here, SQL. So SQL Server is a premium app. Let's go see what happens when we try to make these connections. I will tell you right now, this is a live demo, so things can go wrong. So let's go find out. So some of the trigger events, and so actually you want to make it to where stuff that happens in SQL is a trigger or an action. That's the biggest question. Let's go to the main Zapier site. And the reason why I'll sometimes come straight out to the main Zapier where you have both connections listed here instead of going into Zaps is because whenever you start typing in a single, actually, let's just go ahead and do them both. Do act or SQL and act, for instance. What you'll see is on the trigger side, you see triggers for both applications. So you'll see the SQL triggers here, and you'll see the act triggers. And the same for the actions. You can see all of the act actions and all of the SQL actions. So I've not tried to connect.
Yeah, Billy, I think we should probably leave it right there. John, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on SQL. It's a little bit much of an education, but I think that Billy has kind of given you the groundwork to where you can kind of start this exploration. If you don't mind, I want to get to some other questions. Another John has asked a question about maybe improving the connection between ACT and LinkedIn using this, because as you know, that connection has been problematic since 2013. So they're wondering how that can be improved. So
let's talk about that. And again, there's 3 different types of LinkedIn apps in Zapier immediately that you have to worry about. And sorry, I just lost my left monitor for a second. So there we go. So there's LinkedIn lead gen forms, and there's LinkedIn matched audiences. So here's the problem. The previous integration with LinkedIn was designed to allow you to find your clients pretty much and get them into pretty much make that link between ACT and LinkedIn. And that's not something you can do with Zapier. And the reason why is because this LinkedIn, all 3 of these LinkedIn items, they don't talk about like first level LinkedIn connections. So if you go into LinkedIn, for instance, and look at the triggers, there's no triggers. There's absolutely none for LinkedIn. There's only the ACT triggers listed here. So you're already limited. So you can't say, hey, every time I get a new LinkedIn contact, let's figure out what that is. For the actions though, well, there's a bunch of ACT actions and 2 LinkedIn actions you can do if you have a trigger. And that's to create an update, a share update, or create a company update. And so that's talking about your own account, right? But it's talking about your company account, which is usually one of the paid ones. If we looked at some of the other LinkedIn, so the lead gen forms are where you're pretty much doing advertisements directly in LinkedIn. Sorry, let me pause notifications. And then the matched audiences, this is also one of their paid services that they do. But again, no triggers. It's all about creating these actions. So I'll add email to an audience, create an audience, or remove an email from an audience. And that's just for the LinkedIn audiences section. So you're not going to get the joy that you want out of making change like that, trying to like reinvent that connection between ACT and LinkedIn. LinkedIn's just very close to the chest with their data, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks, Billy. James, first-time caller, long-time listener, wants to know if we can connect things like connect Zoom info into ACT through Zapier.
So I don't know if Zoom info was actually the name of the product, but there are some Zoom-based ones, yes. So the Zoom triggers are kind of fun. Every time there's a new meeting, you can have something happen. If there's a new recording or a new registrant to a Zoom webinar that you signed up for. So every time they register, you can add them to ACT. For the actions, you can only create a meeting, add a registrant to it, or for a meeting or for a webinar. So you could make it to where if you add certain contacts into ACT, that it creates a meeting or forces them into a webinar as a registrant. But that's as far as you can go.
So Mark has asked, and we've had this question many times with reference to integration with DocuSign. I'm not terribly optimistic, but it's worth investigating while we've got the group here.
So DocuSign is here. I've looked into DocuSign a few times, but they do allow you to automatically have a trigger of whenever someone does an envelope center completed. And for the purpose of people who aren't as familiar with DocuSign, whenever you sign or send documents over to be signed, they consider that an envelope. So you can go one way or another. Whenever you send or complete an envelope, it can do stuff in Act. And that find or create, or even for the purpose of what you're talking about, Mark, add history. So it would be a two-step Zap where you first find or create that contact, right? And then you could say the second step would be like to add a history. So the answer is yes, though I don't have a DocuSign account to kind of get through the nitty gritty, but provisionally you should be able to do that.
No, but I think that's actually good. That's more than I thought there would be. And you know, trigger a history or trigger an activity for follow-up, anything like that. That's more integration than I was anticipating.
Yeah, well, most definitely.
For those that were, Mark, what we get is a lot of questions regarding like merging into DocuSign, and that's not the type of integration that I think would be available here.
All right. So
how about
one
Facebook?
more connection. Facebook. Okay. So I was going to try to show you guys Facebook lead ads here. Unfortunately, it's for a side business that it's a private club, so I couldn't really do much, but I do kind of want to show you the individual sections. And I have a video I've already put together on Facebook lead ads specifically. So I'm going to kind of sum up a little bit. If you have a Facebook business, you can create a lead ad, and that will help drive traffic to your Facebook page, and hopefully from there to your website, and ostensibly to your wallet. That's where you want them to go. So when you create a Facebook lead ad, it creates kind of like a little API entry in Facebook that you can, whenever someone clicks on an ad, there's forms they can fill out sometimes, especially for like if you're trying to get more information on them. That information can be fed directly into Act, or even on top of that, you can go into Act and you can send you a message in Slack, and then send them an envelope in DocuSign. You can do lots of stuff with a premium account. So that's kind of the biggest thing when it comes to Facebook lead ads. So new lead is the only trigger, and I don't believe there's any actions at all for it. So Facebook lead ads is like a paid service where it just says, give me contact data. And the way Facebook works is that's engaged contact data, because they had to fill out that information or pretty much agree to share that data. The Facebook pages, though, they do allow you to do anytime there's a new post or a new recommendation. And that's I've tried the new recommendation thing. I haven't seen it really do much for me. And again, there's only a couple of actions here. You can change the profile photo, create a page photo, a post, or a video. So you can actually have actions in one place, create a post on your Facebook group or your Facebook page. Facebook Messenger, whenever a message is sent to a page, you ever go to a company page and it immediately pops up with a, hey, how's it going? Whenever they respond, you can actually have that trigger other actions. So that's a good trigger to do, other things. Like in this case, add stuff directly into Act, or you can even automatically respond back. So Zapier's kind of got you covered in a couple of different ways. And while Zapier is great, it's not the end-all be-all. It is a really good shim, especially for a smaller business who doesn't have a developer and really wants two programs to talk to each other. So whenever you see kind of limited triggers and limited actions, that's not a bad thing. That's just what the developer of that app wanted to add into Zapier. The last one for Facebook is custom audiences. This is, again, a paid service, but it only has actions to add people to custom audiences or create a custom audience. And that's pretty much like, it's very similar to when you're making a Facebook post and you filter out your parents because you don't want them to see what you're typing. It's very similar to that, but it's for a business side of things where you create a custom audience based off of market data. You want to add people to it very quickly.
Excellent, thanks, Billy. We're getting near the top of the hour, and I want to respect everyone's time, but there were a number of people that joined in late, so I just want to quickly show again where we'll be posting the videos. So sure. Billy, if you can show that, go to the homepage.
Okay, this is keystroke.ca for everybody's edification.
Scroll down, please. And then click on keystroke training videos. It's literally the last button there on the right-hand side. And by this time tomorrow, you'll see the last button here at the bottom will be on today's presentation. Also here, you'll notice Billy mentioned link to list for the list scrubbing service. That's here. Act Connect link setup. Mark was asking about, how do I get my API? That's an excellent video for that. We've got other Linktivity products posted here, including getting your Bright Verify account for link to list. Just go through these. I think you'll find a lot of these really useful. But tomorrow, by this time, we'll have the one for this webinar. So I want to thank everyone been watching and monitoring the questions. If there are no other questions, we'll let everyone get back to their day. I want to thank Billy for this presentation. For those that would not have otherwise known, Billy was not feeling well today and we weren't sure he was going to make it. I can tell you, Billy, if I hadn't known, I would have no clue. You did a great job. Again, want to thank everyone for coming out and have a great day.
For this conference will now be